They say, losing your father is hard, but losing your mother leaves you truly orphaned. But in my memory, the word father never existed. From the moment I could walk, there was only one figure in my world, a thin woman with tired eyes and the lingering smell of soap on her clothes. That was my mother. To me, she was everything, a father, a friend, and the only shield I had against the harsh world outside. We lived in a small wooden house with a rusted tin roof on the edge of town. In winter, the wind cut through the cracks in the walls and froze my little feet. In summer, the heat pressed down on the metal roof, turning our house into an oven that smelled of rust and sweat. But to me, it was still home. Because every night I could fall asleep wrapped in my mother's arms. Each morning, she would ride her rickety old bicycle to the laundromat where she worked. Her hands were always cracked and raw from soaking in detergent, her nails often bleeding. I remember watching her wrap her fingers in a piece of cloth before going right back to scrubbing. One day at school, a boy pushed me and sneered, "Where's your dad? How come I never see him pick you up?" The whole class laughed. That afternoon, I asked my mom, "Where is my dad?" She froze, her hands still holding a shirt she was folding. For a moment, sadness flickered in her eyes. Then she forced a smile and said, "It's enough that you have me." From that day on, I knew our family would never look like the others. No father at the dinner table, no man fixing the roof when it leaked, just my mother and me, and the silence we shared whenever the word dad was spoken. My childhood was measured out in simple meals on a wobbly wooden table. Half an egg shared between us, a bowl of watered-down vegetable soup, or sometimes just instant noodles stretched with extra broth to make it look full. Whenever I asked, "Mom, why aren't you eating much?" she would smile and slide more food into my bowl. "I already ate at work. You go ahead." Back then, I believed her. But as I grew older, I realized she wasn't eating at work. She was skipping meals so I could be full. By 8th grade, my old shoes had holes big enough for my toes to peek out. I walked fast so no one would notice. Then one morning, I found a brand new pair of sneakers on my desk. I ran to hug my mom, asking how she could afford them. She only patted my head and said, "I've been saving. You need to look decent at school." That evening, I came home and saw her eating nothing but rice with plain broth. The new sneakers on my feet suddenly felt unbearably heavy. When I entered high school, she started taking on a second job. Laundry work during the day, dishwashing at a diner at night. Sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night to see her still awake under the dim yellow light, patching up my old school uniforms. Her back hunched, her hands trembling from exhaustion. Her cough became more frequent. One night, I rushed out to find her clutching her chest, face pale. "Mom, we need to go to the hospital." She shook her head, forcing a weak smile. "No, it's nothing. Just save the money for your studies," I wanted to argue, to drag her to a doctor. But her stubborn eyes silenced me. Neighbors often warned her, "You can't keep living like this. You'll collapse one day. Who will take care of your daughter then?" But she would just chuckle and reply, "As long as she has food on the table and stays in school, it's worth it." That night, lying in bed, my pillow soaked with tears, I finally understood. My mother had chosen to carry everything alone. No husband, no partner. Just her frail shoulders against the weight of our survival. I had no birthday cakes, no trips to the movies like other kids. But I had something else. Her presence. Every night, no matter how tired she was, she would sit beside me, tell me a short story, or simply hold my hand in silence. And that warmth made me believe, as long as I had her, I needed nothing more. But little did I know, every sacrifice she made was stacking into a silent debt she was hiding from me. I was 17 when winter came earlier than usual. The wind bit through the cracks of our tin roof house, rain dripping steadily onto the floorboards. Yet every morning, my mother still rode her rickety bicycle to the laundromat. That winter, her cough grew worse. At first it was just a few scattered coughs. Then it turned into long, hollow fits that shook her thin frame at night. I begged her, "Mom, please, let's go see a doctor." She waved it off. "It's nothing, just a cold. I'll be fine with some medicine." But I wasn't convinced. Her eyes looked sunken, her lips cracked and pale, her hands trembling when she tried to hold a spoon. One evening, I noticed a blood stain on her handkerchief. She quickly hid it when she saw me looking. "It's nothing," she whispered. "I must have coughed too hard." Something inside me told me the truth was much darker. One afternoon, I came home early from school and froze in the doorway. My mother was sitting with a man in a suit, his leather briefcase resting on the table. His voice was low, stern. "Ma'am, you must keep up with your payments. If you fall behind again, the bank will not extend your loan." My stomach dropped. My mother lowered her head, her voice trembling. "I understand. Just please give me a little more time. My daughter is finishing high school. I don't want her to worry." I stumbled back before they could see me. My chest tightened. Payments? The bank? A loan? That night, when she served me a warm bowl of rice, she smiled as if nothing had happened. "Eat up, sweetheart. And don't forget your math tutoring tomorrow. Bring a jacket. It's cold out there." She spoke so naturally, hiding everything behind that tired smile. I didn't have the courage to ask, but the truth had a way of surfacing. One stormy night, I woke to the sound of choking gasps. Rushing out, I found her collapsed by the door, clutching her chest, sweat pouring down her face. "Mom, I'm calling an ambulance." She grabbed my arm, breath ragged. "No, too expensive. Don't." Tears blurred my vision. "Money? You're telling me money matters more than your life?" She didn't answer. She just looked at me with eyes full of love and a desperate kind of resignation. Then her body went limp in my arms. The next morning, at the hospital, the doctor's words shattered me. Late-stage lung cancer. She must have carried it for years, untreated, letting it silently eat away at her body. I sat in the hallway, numb, while she lay in that sterile white bed, her body so fragile it seemed the sheets alone could crush her. When I held her hand, she whispered with the faintest breath, "Don't cry, my daughter. Just promise me you'll finish school, no matter what." But inside me, a storm was rising, about her sickness, about the debt, about a future I was too terrified to imagine. The final days in the hospital are etched into me like scars. The sharp scent of disinfectant filled the sterile white room. The steady beeping of the heart monitor counted down the seconds my mother had left. She had grown so frail, I was afraid even touching her would break her. Each time she opened her eyes, her voice was weak but steady. "How are your classes? Don't miss school. Promise me." I bit down so hard on my lip it bled. How could I think of school when she was slipping away before my eyes? I sold my bicycle, borrowed from friends, scraping together what I could to pay the hospital bills. but the costs were impossible. One night, I begged the doctor, "Please do everything you can. I'll find a way to pay." The doctor looked at me with tired eyes. "We've done all we can. The cancer is too advanced. The kindest thing now is to let her go peacefully." The ground beneath me crumbled. That last night, I held her hand, feeling her pulse fade beneath my fingers. She turned to me, her lips trembling with effort. "My daughter, I'm sorry. Sorry for the burden. But promise me, never fall into debt. Never." Before she could finish, her hand slipped from mine, her chest stilled, and the monitor let out a long, unbroken tone. I screamed, clutching her lifeless body, calling "Mom, Mom," over and over, but she never answered again. After the funeral, the little wooden house felt emptier than ever. Her clothes still hung on the wall. Her cracked bowl still sat in the kitchen. But without her, the air was heavy with silence. While cleaning her bed, I found an envelope tucked beneath her pillow. On the front, written in her shaky handwriting, "For my daughter." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were bank papers, mortgage documents for our house. My world collapsed as I read the numbers. Over $60,000 owed. The home I thought was our safe haven had been mortgaged years ago. Alongside the papers was a letter, blurred with water stains. Her tears, maybe. "My sweet daughter, forgive me for keeping this from you. I didn't want you to worry while you were in school. I borrowed the money to pay your tuition, to keep this house from falling apart. I believed you would succeed one day, and that you'd pay it back when you could. If I don't live to see that day, please forgive me. Don't let this debt chain your life. Be free. I love you more than anything." Mom, I clutched the letter to my chest, sobbing until my body shook. I loved her. I hated her. I pitied her. She had carried this crushing weight in silence, protecting me even as it destroyed her. But within a week, the bank sent its notice. If I couldn't pay, they would repossess the house. The walls, the roof, the floorboards soaked with memories of her. It was all about to be taken, reduced to numbers on a ledger. The bank's notice sat on the table like a verdict. My eyes locked on the number. $60,000. It wasn't just money. It was a mountain pressing down on my chest. That house wasn't just four walls and a roof. It was the sound of rain on tin during nights without a father. It was my mother's silhouette, hunched under the yellow lamp, patching my school uniforms. It was the smell of burnt rice mixed with her laughter on the hardest days. If I lost it, I feared I would lose her all over again. So I worked. God, I worked until my body broke. Days at the supermarket stocking shelves, nights at a fast food counter, weekends cleaning offices. My hands blistered. My eyes burned from lack of sleep. My body ached. But every time I put my key into that old wooden door, I told myself, I have to keep this house. This is all that's left of her. The neighbors whispered, "What's the point? A girl like her can't pay off that kind of debt. That house is gone no matter what she does." I bit down on my tongue and pushed harder. Every paycheck went to the bank. But compared to the debt, it was nothing. Just a drop in the ocean. The interest alone ate my wages alive. Month after month, the balance hardly moved. One stormy evening, I came home drenched in rain. The house reeked of mold. Drops leaked from the ceiling into rusty pans. I sank into a chair, clutching my mother's letter. For the first time, I asked myself, did she really want this for me? Did she want me to chain my youth, my future, to a house held hostage by debt? Her last words echoed in my mind, never fall into debt. And here I was, becoming a prisoner of it. The day the bank officials came, I placed the house key on the table with shaking hands. If you can't continue payments, the man said coldly, we'll have to reclaim the property. I nodded, my throat tight. When they left, I collapsed to the floor, sobbing. It felt like betrayal, like I had abandoned my mother's memory. But through my tears, a whisper rose inside me. Memories don't live in walls. They live in you. On the final day, I walked through each room. My fingertips traced the pencil marks on the doorway, the ones that measured my height each year. I sat on the worn step where she once sewed clothes in the sun. I clutched her old silver bracelet, the only thing the bank could never take. When I finally set the keys down at the bank, I felt a part of me tear away. Yet in that same moment, I felt lighter. The chains were gone. For the first time, I was free. That night, I moved into a tiny rented room. The streetlight spilled through a dirty window. I placed my mother's bracelet on the table and whispered, Mom, I couldn't keep the house, but I will keep your love, and I will not live shackled by debt. I will live for both of us. Life after leaving the old house felt like stepping into an empty space. My rented room was small, its walls stained with damp, its window frame rusted. There was no wooden step where my mother once sat sewing, no smoky kitchen filled with her laughter. But slowly I realized I was breathing easier. For the first time in years, I wasn't haunted by overdue bills or the shadow of debt. I started saving, just a little at first. Each dollar I tucked away reminded me of her last words in the hospital. Never fall into debt, my daughter. My mother had loved me with everything she had, even with what she didn't have. That love drove her to borrow, to hide her illness, to carry the weight alone. But her love also taught me something harsh. Love cannot replace food on the table. Love cannot erase the cost of survival. Money isn't everything, but without it, even the purest love can be eroded, twisted into sacrifice and silence. My mother loved me fiercely, but poverty forced her into choices that ended in tragedy for both of us. Tonight, I sit by the window of my tiny room, the city lights flickering beyond the glass. In my hand is her old silver bracelet, the last piece of her I still hold. I whisper into the night, Mom, I will live differently. I will honor your love not by clinging to debt, but by building a life of freedom. Your love is with me always, and it will guide me toward a life you never had the chance to live. And I finally understood some houses we must leave behind, but love never leaves us. Some debts are not measured in money, but in the painful lessons that force us to grow. A mother's love can raise us, protect us, even shield us from the world. But money decides how we survive. Never let love be buried under the weight of debt. The greatest inheritance my mother left me was not a house, but the freedom that came from letting it go. If you were in my place, would you keep the house and carry the debt, or let it go to begin again?